Mage Wars is a card-driven game of magical combat from designer Brian Pope and publisher Arcane Wonders.
In Mage Wars, players are mages in a duel to the death, and they must use every trick in their spellbooks in order to survive. It supports 2 players and plays in about an hour and a half. The Spell Tome expansions add new cards to your spellbooks to customize them, and the Force Master vs. Warlord and Druid vs. Necromancer expansions add new mages to the game.
Players start Mage Wars by choosing a mage and taking the mage and ability cards and the action markers for their side. They mark their mage's channeling and life scores on their status board. Then each player assembles their spellbook, either following a template from the rulebook or building a custom card set using a point-buy system.
The mage cards are placed at opposite corners of the main board with an action marker and quick cast marker face up on each one. The dice and counters go next to the board. Players roll to see who gets initiative, then the game begins.
Each round has 2 stages, the ready stage and the action stage. During the ready stage, the players turn their action and quick cast markers over and ready any actions that need preparing. Then they're going to add mana to their supply according to their channeling score, and any objects or creatures on the board that can also channel mana will collect mana tokens. Players also pay the upkeep costs on any spells that are ongoing and have a chance to remove ongoing effects.
Next, each player prepares 2 spells by placing them face down on the table. Some objects and creatures can also cast spells, so the player may choose to prepare 1 spell for each of them and place it face down beside the caster. Mages cannot cast spells that have not been prepared.
The final step before the action stage is deployment. So any spells that are assigned to casters other than the mage can now be cast by turning their card over and paying their casting cost in mana, and this casting cost is listed on the upper left of the card.
During the action phase, players take turns activating the creatures and the mage that they control. The player with initiative goes first. An activation lets you take either a move and a quick action, or lets you stay put and take a full action. Once you've activated a creature or mage, the activation token gets placed face down.
Creatures can move 1 zone horizontally or vertically before taking a quick action. This quick action can be an attack or special ability on your creature card that is marked with a lightning bolt symbol, a quick spell that's been prepared by the mage, moving another zone, or guarding.
To guard, a player places a guard token on a creature, and that creature gains a defensive bonus if they are attacked that round. If an opponent's creature is in the same zone as your creature, then you cannot take a move as a quick action.
There are 6 spell types: incantations, enchantments, creatures, conjurations, equipment, and attacks. Now, each spell is going to have a range listed on it, and it must be cast within that range. Incantations are spells with a brief, temporary effect, such as healing damage.
Creature spells summon a creature. Creatures can act and move independently, and they come into play with their action marker face down. Conjuration spells bring an object into play. Objects stay on the board until they are destroyed. They can't take actions, but they can channel mana and cast spells upon deployment. They can also block movement and cause damage.
Enchantments always target a specific creature. When you first cast an enchantment, you pay its casting cost and place it face down on its target. It's going to stay hidden until it's revealed, where it's flipped over and you pay its reveal cost. And an enchantment can be revealed at any time. Equipment spells can only target your mage, and they're going to give them items that provide them with a defense boost or improve their casting and attacks.
Attack spells, melee attacks, and ranged attacks are all resolved in the same way. So the attacker chooses a target, they make sure that target is within range, and then if the defending creature has a defense attribute on their card, they can roll to avoid the attack. If that roll is successful, then the attack has no effect.
Next, the attacker rolls their listed attack dice. Critical damage, which is marked with a starburst around the number on the die, goes through armor, while regular damage is blocked by it. So after you've rolled, you're going to add up your total damage and then subtract 1 point of regular damage for each point of armor that the defender has. Any remaining damage is applied to the defender. If the defender takes total damage that meets or exceeds their life, they're destroyed.
Some attacks let you roll the yellow effect die for an extra effect like stun or burning. Some attacks let you take multiple attacks, which will happen concurrently. The defender doesn't get to fight back against an attack unless they have a damage barrier or counter-strike trait, which allows them to immediately take a melee attack in response.
After a creature's activation is complete, the next player gets to activate one of their creatures. Now, your quick cast marker lets you cast one quick spell that your mage has prepared. And you can do this at the start of the action stage, at the end of the action stage, or immediately before or after one of your own creatures has activated.
Once all creatures have been activated, the next ready stage begins. The game continues in this way until one of the mages is destroyed and that player is defeated.
So I really enjoyed playing Mage Wars. It's really interesting in that it's got a mix of that deck building, customization, and summoning mechanic that you get in something like Magic the Gathering with real tactical tabletop combat like, say, in Summoner Wars. The two elements mesh really well, it all flows together very smoothly, and it makes for a complex, dynamic, and really exciting game. I also love the level of customization that's available. There's a huge number of decks you can build with just the cards in the box, and the expansions are pretty cheap, they're quite accessible, and they just expand your options exponentially. I also really enjoy the fact that the mages themselves are really unique. It's not just that everybody gets different spells, but that these spells are going to lend themselves to very different play styles. And there's a lot of interest and longevity in switching which mage you play with because you're going to have to completely change your tactics and your strategy. And I love games that let me do that. The one challenge that I really found with Mage Wars is that there is so much information and specifically so much text in this game. Every card contains a wealth of information. Some of it is numbers, some of it is encoded in those traits, which you're going to have to go look up the first time you encounter them, and a lot of it is written out in sometimes entire paragraphs of effect. If somebody's not used to playing games with a lot of text in them, it's a bit of an overwhelming amount of information, and you're just going to have to let yourself get used to it over the first couple of games that you play. It's a lot to absorb, but once you've internalized it, it really gives you this huge range of options to play with and can let you do some incredibly cool stuff.
So another negative that sort of comes along with that wealth of information and the amount of cards that you have to read through and having a spell book and all of that detail is a bit of analysis paralysis. So this game can definitely bog down because you're going to be flipping through your book, trying to figure out what to do. You have so many options and so much to read, and there's a lot of cool stuff, but it's going to take you a while to get through it. So it could definitely slow you down, especially in the first few games that you play. Once you get into this game, though, once you start learning what those cards are about, how to play them, your strategy for a particular mage, then actually this game moves along quite quickly. There isn't all that much downtime. You are going to find that you sort of speed through this game and it really takes a life of its own. Another thing that's fantastic about this game is the theme. I love the art. I think it's gorgeous. It's like 80s rocker fantasy art with a lot of color and a lot of energy and a lot of detail, and it's really beautiful. And actually with sort of the individuality of the mages and the spells and the art and the beauty of the game and the theme often sort of starts to take on a life of its own in terms of narrative. That's not built into the game. There is no narrative built in here, but when you've got mage versus mage and you're casting all these spells that are really particular and really specific, then often stories start to come out of it, and that's a really beautiful sort of side effect of a game that's designed really, really well.